Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. And today we'll talk about how you can make the wisest and most profitable decisions on upskilling remote and hybrid employees for the future of work. The future of work is hybrid and remote. That is the future of work. That's very clear from a great deal of evidence from both employer desires and employee desires. So you want to be prepared for the future of work by upskilling your employees, your supervisors, your managers, your executives, everyone for the future of work, because hybrid work is really going to be different than in-person work or fully remote work. If you want to seize competitive advantage for the future of work, that's what you want to be thinking about. How do you adopt best practices for the future of work? We know that 2/3 of US workers worked remotely at least some time during the pandemic, and about half of them can work fully remotely for all of their schedule. And employer survey results show, company leaders show that most employers will plan to maintain a hybrid schedule for those workers who worked remotely during the pandemic. Who worked remotely some of their time during the pandemic. That means that most will spend 1, 2, maybe 3 days in the office, and some will be fully remote. So most 1 to 3 days in the office, some fully remote. The decision making by leaders does match employee desires. Employee survey results show that of those who can work fully remotely, most want to work on a hybrid schedule, maybe 1 or 2 days in the office. And 1/4, so a larger number, want a fully remote schedule. Only maybe about 10 to 15% want to work full time in the office. And in order to effectively have a hybrid schedule, a hybrid model, you want to understand and recognize that this hybrid work is going to be continue to be different from either in-office work or remote work. Employing hybrid first model requires training your employees to collaborate effectively in a hybrid setting when they spend some of their time at home and some of their time in the office. And the same thing for innovation. You want to make sure they innovate effectively, again, when they spend some of their time in the office and some of their time at home. Collaboration and innovation are the key critical components that will define success and competitive advantage in the future of work, and you want to make sure that your employees do so. To do so, you want to train your employees to divide their work time effectively between home and office. We know from extensive research that people are overall quite a bit more productive at home than they are in the office, especially in their individual tasks. So in the office, you should say for collaborative tasks, where there's kind of more of a divide, more of a wash between whether people are more productive in the office and more productive at home, and in the office, more intense collaborations are probably better for most people. So save the individual tasks at home, including preparing for collaborative tasks in the office. That should be done at home. Now, virtual communication is a key area of upskilling for people who will spend part of their time working remotely. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, companies failed to provide effective training overwhelmingly for virtual collaboration and virtual communication. And this was because, they were thinking, hey, we'll get back to the office, everything will be fine. Even though before the pandemic, companies spent a great deal of money on teamwork training and collaboration, on communication training, lots of money, but they didn't spend it on much more complex and difficult and different collaboration, communication, virtual environments. Now that companies are realizing there's a permanent full-time shift to hybrid schedule with some people even full-time remote, that means you really need to invest quite a lot of resources into retraining and upskilling your employees for effective communication, collaboration, and innovation in hybrid and remote settings. In communication, you want to realize what it means to lose those nonverbals. Even on Zoom, even on video conference, you don't get the full tone of voice, you don't get the full body expression, body language, and of course, you get much less of that on text. Emojis don't replace tone and body language. So those are really things you want to be thinking about. Slack and Microsoft Teams, Trello, Asana, Mondays, whatever you use, those collaboration software, and email, of course, does not convey effectively the emotional nonverbals that are so important for communicating ideas. And that, of course, creates dangers for mutual understanding and connection emotionally between people, which hinders collaboration and innovation. Now, in-office face-to-face interaction is very important for effective collaboration and innovation. You can detect problems early and intervene, so to facilitate good collaboration, and you can share your full ideas on innovation effectively, get excited, talk to others. It's harder to do so in remote settings and hybrid settings if you don't train people effectively on collaboration, communication, and innovation in remotely. So that body language, tone of voice is a big challenge, leads to lots of miscommunications which impair collaboration and innovation. You want to provide training for your folks on emotional and social intelligence. Emotional intelligence refers to understanding and being able to manage your own emotions. Social intelligence refers to understanding and being able to influence other people's emotions effectively. And you want to realize that these were things, especially the social intelligence, was much easier when we worked in the office because body language, tone of voice in person are much easier to read. You're able to understand other people and convey your own emotions and thus influence other people. Much harder in remote and hybrid settings. So you want to help ensure that people are able to read hybrid and remote meeting participants. So remote meeting participants, when everyone's in a small corner, a small square in Zoom, especially when some people don't have their videos on, that's not great. And in hybrid meetings, when some people are on a small video conference screen and others are on a small screen and they're all sitting in a room and you can barely see their faces. That's not great either. You want to train people to manage and influence others in those sorts of meetings and read them and understand what's going on in order to build strong connections and address misunderstandings, improve collaboration and innovation. Besides that, so those are work collaboration relevant things and innovation. You also want to be thinking about work-life balance because employees struggle with work-life balance in remote settings, hybrid settings, and of course in-person settings. But there are specific and particular struggles which are associated with hybrid and remote settings, according to surveys. So employees feel burned out, unable to disconnect in these settings, and they are obliged to respond to messages outside of work hours, partially because they don't have that division of, oh, I'm home, I'm not working anymore. So you want to provide clear guidelines and training to balance work and life for hybrid and remote employees. Because otherwise you're going to get employee burnout, and that's part of the great resignation that's going on in these tight labor markets. You don't want your employees burning out and leaving your company for one that respects their employees' work-life balance more. So you want to send regular public reminders to employees to stick to preset hours for communication. Don't go more than a couple of hours before or after work unless there's a prearranged agreement to do so. And you want to communicate to your managers, those mid-level and lower managers, to not burn out your employees. Zero tolerance for encouraging burnout to meet set goals. That means that your goals are problematic or they're not managing very well if they're encouraging burnout. And managers really should discuss working hours with employees to address any challenges that employees that might be facing where they see employees are overworking, because it's not great for employees to overwork and then be burned out. So that is not a good outcome that you want. So that is something you want to discourage. A good thing to think about is to establish a wellness team that addresses potential work-life balance and burnout issues. So talk to employees who log on or send emails more than a couple of hours before the workday ends, after the workday ends, or before it begins. So you want to check in and discuss the situation with these employees. Exceptions would be something like an emergency happening, which shouldn't happen more than once a month or so. Now, there, of course, can be prearranged work agreements. So somebody can, for example, stop their work at 3 and go pick up their kids and then put them to bed at 8 and then work for a couple of hours between 8 and 10, 11 or something like that to make up for that time. That's totally cool. That's great. But you want to agree that in advance and make sure that everything is okay with that employee. Now, an important thing to think about that I've seen go wrong in a number of clients is underperformance, where employees who are underperforming are pressured to work outside of work hours, to work more, that is not a good idea because that'll cause burnout, and it's likely that there's something else going on that needs to be addressed as opposed to the employees not working enough. Underperformance may be due to the need for more professional development for that person. Maybe they have an unmanageable workload. Maybe something changed, their workload is different because of supply chain disruptions or something like that. And you want to maybe see, okay, maybe that's not a good thing for them and for your company. Or maybe the person is no longer a good fit for the job. Maybe the job changed and the role changed. Maybe the person's motivation, skills shifted in some ways, and they're no longer a good fit for the job. And that's something to be thinking about. So this is what's involved in upskilling remote and hybrid employees to make sure that you seize a competitive advantage for the future of work. All right, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on whatever channel you heard it, whether it's a video in the form of video cast on YouTube, or maybe a podcast on iTunes or an Amazon podcast. Make sure to subscribe to it and leave a review. That's the best compliment you can give a show. Please share it with your friends and family. Make sure that they get the same benefit that you got from the show. And of course, send your thoughts to me about what you liked about the show and what can be improved at Gleb, Gleb, at disasteravoidanceexperts.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. And in the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.